Hi, Dan. It's so good to be here with you today.
You too, Masami. Always a pleasure.
And I thought Paul was going to give introduction of both of us to the people who are here, but actually most people would know you. But I thought that we can start this conversation by talking about some things that the people here may not know of. And the best person to tell this story of why we are here tonight together, and Paul introducing us is a kind of symbolic occasion as well. So then, could you, share with all of us how you got linked up with, this space of B1G1 business for good, Paul, me, all of that?
Oh, yeah, look, the story goes a long way back. When I was 10 years old, I used to go to school each day, and my dad would listen to business cassette tapes in the car. And and I remember, I'd travel to school and we'd listen to this voice, and the voice would say, you got to create a wow experience. And it would say, people need to feel that you could really wow, right? And I'd hear this, and then when I was in my mid 20s, I went to a conference and I could hear the speaker on the stage, and he was going, "You gotta get wow!" And I was like, "Hey, I know that voice. That's the voice from my childhood." Went up and spoke to Paul. I said I used to go to school every day listening to your voice, and then Paul and I started a great friendship. He recommended that I start to that I think about coming to London. He recommended that I come out to Bali and meet you and B1G1, and that he told me he'd met some amazing person and that they're going to create a B1G1 movement around the world. So yeah, it all stems from these lovely little serendipitous moments.
Mm. So it's been an amazing, more than 18 years, I think. I know I've known you. And
Wow.
actually, yeah. And then actually along the way, I had the pleasure of engaging in, what you share and teach other entrepreneurs. So I've done the KPI program and then, became part of Dent initiative as well. So from your own words, are you able to give us all a quick kind of a history of your entrepreneurship and what you stand for?
Yeah, so I've had a serial entrepreneurial journey over the last 20 years. I've had seven startups, and I've had four exits. And I'm very passionate about entrepreneurship. I really believe that entrepreneurship is problem solving at scale. It's a methodology for spotting a problem in the world and then finding a scalable solution. And as soon as you kind of really see entrepreneurship through the light of solving big, meaningful problems at scale, you realize that that methodology works just as well for causes, charities, any part of the world that you want to improve. The entrepreneurial method is a really great method for doing that at scale. All through my entrepreneurial journey, I've wanted to use business as a force for good. I've wanted to essentially say, look, as we grow and as we scale our success, we want to do positive things in the community. And right from the beginning of each business, we've always said these are some of the causes, these are some of the things that we want to that we want to achieve. And I think it's completely in line with the broader goal of wanting to solve problems at scale. Because when customers see that you're a amazing problem solving company, they go, "Oh wow, this company isn't just solving my problems at scale; they're solving all sorts of problems at scale." And it's incredibly attractive. I think people want to work for businesses like that. People want to buy from businesses like that. And ultimately, as we grow and succeed, we want to run businesses like that.
Yeah, totally right. And ahead of this conversation, when people sign up to come to this call live, we let them ask, questions, just open-ended questions, right? So I was looking at all of the questions coming through, and then found lots of common thread, among many of the questions. So I want to ask some of the questions today too. But before getting into that, perhaps we just finished the month of January, which is 1/12 of the year. But many of us are still probably feeling this like beginning of year feeling, right? About what we're
Yeah.
gonna achieve this year. So we are all very curious about your biggest goal for the year 2026.
Whew. So I currently have a group of 6 companies that I head up, that I run, and every 90 days we always do what we call our 5 A's. So our 5 A's are getting the teams aligned to the biggest goals, surfacing our awarenesses, delegating accountabilities, creating the weekly activities that will get us there, and developing the assets that will allow us to scale up. So we do these things called the 5 A's every 90 days. And it's just part of our rolling 90-day schedule to do that. Every one of my businesses has big goals for the year. So for example, for Dent, we really are focused around the key person of influence methodology and making sure that entrepreneurs are AI ready and that they've built a personal brand that is going to enhance with AI as opposed to be drowned out by AI. For ScoreApp, we're probably looking at hitting a point where we may look for a big strategic partnership or even an exit this year. It's a tech
Wow.
company. So it's one of those companies that would probably fit really well with a big company. So we're always looking at each company has its own goal.
But do you have any personal theme for 2026?
Oh, I have pages. I have all of my goals for 2026, but it comes down to like family, um
Mm,
and look, my overarching goal is that, like, if you were to say the big overarching goal, it aligns always to that. Number one, I believe that we're living in extraordinary times, and that my goal is to make the most of the times that we're in, and not to cling to the past, and not to get carried away with the future, but to make the most of the moments that we're in. Um, and and also, like, to my personal goal for business is to be a person who develops entrepreneurs who can stand out, scale up, and make positive impact in the world. And that really hasn't changed for the last 20 years. For 20 years, I've been trying to develop entrepreneurs who stand out, scale up, and make positive impact. All of the businesses that I run kind of fit with that theme.
mm. And it's interesting you talk about entrepreneurship, but you mentioned a little bit about family. And Paul asked the question about this, family relation with entrepreneurship, right? Did you get that question right, Dan, when Paul was asking in the quiz?
Oh, well, I didn't see the answer, but I said 18%. Was that right?
No, it's 70, the biggest one.
Wow,
Was it
75,
75%? Yeah.
75%. That's wild. I thought it was the smallest one, but
Yeah.
wow, that
No,
make
we were very surprised. Perhaps the link between family and entrepreneurship, we can talk a little bit more about that later. But majority of questions that the people were asking before this call was either in relation to the relation between impact or purpose with the business success. How do we balance it? How do we maintain the strong focus on your purpose when there are so many things we need to worry about? Do you have
yeah. Well,
any, advice for that?
yeah. So if you take a city like Paris, you've got the Eiffel Tower right there in the middle, and everything builds up around the Eiffel Tower. And I kind of think about purpose as a little bit like the Eiffel Tower of the business. It's the central thing that everything, it's the central focal point. Obviously, there's hundreds or thousands of things that need to be done, but having a central focal point, the purpose of this business, Simon Sinek talks about start with why, start with the
Mm,
purpose. You want every single person in the company to say, why does this business exist? So I would hope that if I tap everyone on the shoulder at Dent and say, why does Dent exist? They would say, it exists to develop entrepreneurs who stand out, scale up, and make a positive impact in the world, make their dent in the universe. So, and also, if you were to talk to the ScoreApp team, you would say, we're developing a powerful technology to allow entrepreneurs to scale up and make their impact in the world. Right. So we have that built into all of our companies. Some of the things that we do with every team member is we talk about origin story, mission, and vision. We talk about purpose, passion,
mm,
values, right? All of that sort of stuff. So we get that right embedded from the beginning. And then that kind of becomes the compass that tells you whether you're doing the right things or not, right? It tells you whether it's even worth, like, why are we building this website? Why are we running these marketing campaigns? Why are we selling this particular product? Needs to line up behind that purpose.
And the purpose became such a big thing. And I'm sure probably 100% of people on this, call today, they are familiar of Simon Sinek's, start with why and everything. But purpose and the impact, like moving from purpose and the intention to actually making an impact, there is actually a big gap between. So is there anything that you would have in mind about how can we move from good intention to actually making a real impact?
Yeah, so I think there are different levels of impact. It's important to know that every time a customer buys from you, you are making an impact anyway, right? So,
Mm.
the reason that customers buy is they want to solve a problem. And, like just the fundamentals of being in business, you are a problem solver. You are helping people with their problems. And you never know the flow-on impact that you will have. Like, so for Paul, he had no idea that when he put that little voice cassette out into the mail to my dad, that my dad would play that in the car, and then that would
Mm.
lead me to live here in London and meet my wife and get married and have 3 children, right? And if I hadn't have heard that cassette tape, I wouldn't have probably done all
Yeah.
of those things, right? So, he probably had no idea that just by showing up, he was making an impact. And we shouldn't put it all on Paul's shoulders to do that. We should all say, okay, actually, every time every one of us posts something on social media, every time each of us, puts something out in the world, it has the potential for a ripple effect. So at the very basic layer, if you're running a business, you are making impact. At a very basic layer, you're employing people, you're solving problems, you're scaling up. Your businesses exist to do things in a more efficient way. So the fact that your business even exists means that you are providing an efficiency in the marketplace. You're allowing someone to get something done better, cheaper, faster, with more emotional benefits than they could otherwise get it done. So that's why your business exists in the first place. So if you think of that as like layer one, and then layer two is you say, well, actually, what if we could just layer on top of that? So what if just existing or making a sale or hiring someone or interacting, what if that could even have even more impact, right? Which is what you and Paul have given as a gift for us to be able to easily do. So with B1G1, it's just we get to sprinkle extra impact on everything we do, right? So it's something that I'm very grateful for, because as someone who wants to maximize impact, it would be incredibly difficult for me to do that if I didn't have B1G1 available. So I would have, like it would just be like pulling me. The problem is it would pull me away from my day-to-day
Mm.
purpose of running the business. I'd have to go off and see it. I would have to see it as a separate thing. So I'd have to say, oh, I want to see more forests. So therefore, I have to stop running my business and then go figure out how to do all this other stuff. You've just made it automatic and you've made it easy. So it allows me to fulfill my greater goal of having even more impact, um, effortlessly.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, and I checked out, Dent and your B1G1 account, and actually secretly found out that you have already created more than 2 million impacts to date.
Wow,
Yes,
that's
and
cool.
yes, that's actually 2 million, for example, days of change, positive change brought to people's lives around the world, or including number of trees or bricks or meals, or all of
So
those things
wild.
come
It's hard for
together.
my brain even see that or imagine that.
And what makes a real difference is that you actually have done, you and your team have continued to make impacts like periodically and regularly over the years. So that accumulation of impacts and also the implication of the impacts on the people, because when they actually have the meal today and then can have access to water and can go to school and start a business, the impact that they create on the community is massive. So I just want to take a moment to thank you massively on those impacts that you've created so far.
Thank you. And thank you for making it easy for us to do that. We couldn't have done that if we didn't have the B1G platform.
Yeah, but also not only that, because many of the people going through your program have also joined us, and they started the impact. So they are leveraged to giving the impact that you have created. So it's just awesome to see.
That's wild. That is so great.
And so then, we are just so grateful to have you in the B1G1 movement and the community, because what you actually champion out there in all sort of interesting platforms, right? And you were just telling me you got invited to start Stephen Bartlett podcast again. How many
Yes,
times have you been there?
this will be number 7 times on Diary of a CEO.
Wow. And how
Yeah.
did that happen?
Do you know, this is a recurring theme for this call. It was that I put out a little piece of content, which was seen by a guy called Ali Abdal. And then Ali Abdal invited me to go on his podcast. And we had an amazing conversation, and it got millions of views. And it was the first time I'd ever had a podcast that went millions of views. And then Stephen Bartlett's team saw it and they said, "Oh, let's get this guy Daniel onto our podcast." So Stephen Bartlett sent me a message on Instagram saying, "Would you like to come onto my show?" And I said, "Yes, yes, I would. That would be great." And then from there, he told me, I was very concerned, Masami. I was the first time I went on his show, he basically in the previous 2 months, he had 2 episodes that I thought were going to be huge, but they weren't very big views. And he had one with the founder of Airbnb and one with the founder of Spotify. So those are 2 multi-billion-dollar companies, unicorns or decky unicorns. And they had the founders of those companies, and they went on Stephen Bartlett's show, and they basically didn't get a lot of views, maybe 300,000 views in the first couple of months each. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, like if these guys only get 300,000 views, I'm going to do terribly. So I went on the show, and then a couple of months later, it had 2 or 3 million views. And I said to Stephen, how come my episode did better than Airbnb and Spotify? And he said, Daniel, we've already checked the numbers on this, and we now know that relatable beats impressive. So when you're relatable, you have more impact than when you're impressive. And he said the fact that your episode did so well means that it was very relatable to people, as opposed to impressive to people. And I thought that was really fascinating, because a lot of the time we think that we have to do something really impressive. We think that we have to focus on standing out in a way that do something that very, very few people have ever done. And actually, it has 10 times more impact to focus on connection and to focus on being relatable and to do something that people can relate to. And actually, relatable beats impressive means that if you're personally trying to be impressive, you're missing out on 9 out of 10 potential impacts that you could make. And if you focus on being connected and relatable, you get 10 times more impact, which was kind of cool to learn that lesson.
Wow, that's very interesting. And then the reason why you are so relatable, I think, is also because you are the same person in your private space or public space or friendship space. I experienced this genuine kindness, gentle, positive energy and generosity of continuously sharing ideas, thoughts and ideas. So I can totally get that.
I appreciate you saying that. I'll tell you another quick little story, which is that when I first went up on a stage that had 1,000 people in the audience, I was really worried about speaking in front of 1,000 people. And someone said to me that each person can only experience you as one person. And he said, when you're standing on a stage, you experience 1,000 people, but each person in the audience experiences a one-to-one relationship. So don't focus on what you're experiencing, focus on what they're experiencing, which is just talking to one person and listening to one person. And I don't know why that changed my thinking, but it made me realize that all communication is just one to one. It's one voice going to one set of ears. People, even if a million people see something, it is just one to one communication.
Mm.
And then I don't know, as soon as that flipped in my head, I thought, oh, okay, I'm not afraid to, just talk the way I would normally talk, I guess. But thank you.
Lovely. And we could be listening to you much longer too, but because we have a limited time, I'm gonna keep including some of the questions that came from the audience as well, if
Yeah,
you are okay with that.
for sure.
So Simon Bowen here said that as long as I can remember, I have been part of B1G1. He really resonated with the idea that the business is the most powerful force for good on the planet. And so then, when you look 5 or 10 years ahead, what capability do you think leaders will wish they had taken more seriously right now?
Oh, look, 2026 is definitely the year of AI. This is the superpower. Um, this is the superpower that's been unleashed. Nobody asked for it. Nobody demanded it. We didn't have a referendum. We didn't have a vote. But here it is, right? There's this thing that is now in our lives called AI. Because of the work that I do, I get to see some of the more advanced tools and I get to see some of the more advanced use cases. And I probably spend a lot more time thinking about it than a lot of people. And this is no joke. This is a really, really big, it's a really, really big moment for humanity. So there's some interesting fundamentals that are happening at the moment, which is if you think about what do entrepreneurs do, we look for efficiencies. We look for things that could be done more efficiently. So what we do is we look for things that could be done better, faster, cheaper, with more emotional benefits than they're currently being done. And when you unleash something like AI, every business in the world is suddenly massively inefficient because it could be made way more efficient with this technology. So it basically means that every business in the whole world is up for entrepreneurial disruption. Every business is going to have to rethink the way that it does business. Every business needs to have a reason to exist. It needs to have a purpose. It needs to have impact. And what business leaders need to be doing this year is they need to say, well, what is the unchanging nature of my business, right? So what is the thing that will never change? Which is the purpose for this business to exist. And then how do I make that even better using these new tools that are currently available? And this is really the year that every business leader gets to reimagine their business and rethink it through and basically say, I wonder how we would do things, knowing what we now know with the technology that we now know is here. I wonder how this business would be recreated if I was starting from scratch.
It's very crucial that we actually mobilize the power of entrepreneurship to also help make a better world, right? And that's why we are having this conversation. So for those of you who are already part of the 1J1 movement, we wanted to create this space where you can absorb all the insights from people like Dan so that you could actually go ahead and create lots of impacts. And perhaps those of you who haven't been part of the movement, but they are curious. We also have a next conversation happening next week. Me and Paul are hosting a session to introduce the B1J1 initiative and the power of it. So I hope that you would like to join in too. And if that's the case, you can say yes on the chat. And then our team will be sending you invite for that. And so, Dan, really grateful for you being here today. And where I want to go next is actually to talk about something a little bit more personal. And I said we will talk about a little bit about the family, children, and the role of entrepreneurship and the family leadership. So Dan, today is the first time that I publicly talk about this brand new initiative called the B1J1 for Family. And you are part of actually, bringing this initiative to life. So would you like to share a bit about our conversation that we had perhaps more than a year ago?
Well, yeah, the conversation was that a business is a very important group of people, but also a family is a very important group of people, and every single business is made up of families, whether it's a family that's running the business or it's the people who work within the business and the broader families that impacts and that supports. I'm a really big believer in the business unit and the family unit. If I look at, for me personally, if I think about if you wanted to build a really, really strong country that is a thriving, successful country, you would say we want to have really happy, strong families and really happy, strong businesses. And essentially everything would flow from there. Everything would do well if you had good family units and good business units. And in a world that's fast changing, you want to do everything you can to strengthen the business unit and strengthen the family unit so that people feel a shared sense of purpose and a shared sense of identity. And I remember saying to you that wouldn't it be great if I could share with my children, this is what our family does in the world, right? So, um, so I have an 11-year-old who is hyper aware of what's going on in the world. So every single day he comes back and he's like, are we doing enough for the environment? And he talks about, he says, I've just discovered that some people live in poverty and that they don't have enough food to eat. Or he might say, I'm really worried about how much plastic is going into rivers and lakes and streams and oceans. And, everything that we consume, a lot of it is plastic and it'll never break down. And, all of those sorts of things. And, it's probably a lot of pressure that 11-year-olds normally haven't had to worry about. Most 11-year-olds throughout all of history have never had any awareness of what's going on in the broader world. Most 11-year-olds might have noticed what's going on in their neighborhood, but never, global issues, global problems. But 11-year-olds today, they're completely aware of how much is going on in the world. So I said to you, like, it's so important for me to be able to say, hey, look, these are the things that our family is doing. Like, our family is a good force for good. Our family is doing wonderful things. I want to be able to say, look, you're worried about the environment. Look, we as a family, we can pick a rainforest and help it. You're worried about plastic. We can do something regarding plastic. You're worried about someone who doesn't have food or access to schooling. We can do this. And it's also because of B1G1, we can gamify it. So we can say, when you learn to ride a bike, we're going to give a bike to somebody in a different part of the world. Or when you go for walks in nature without your screens, if you have a screen-free walk in nature, we're going to fix a piece of nature somewhere else. If you're eating your vegetables, we're going to make sure that there's something great happening elsewhere. So rather than just incentivizing through pocket money, we want to incentivize through impact. And we want to build a culture within our family that our family is a family that is connected to the world.
And it's profound because when you first said it, I thought, yeah, exactly. That's what we always wanted to do, make it happen. But for such a long time, we said, oh, that's a secondary priority. We have to focus on business. And of course, today, we still focus on this idea of mobilizing the power of business and everyday actions through business activities to make a real difference. But what you reminded me was also the fact that when we have things like a family program, first of all, it creates this much more open, free ways to spread the message of this power of small and how every small action can create a positive impact. And another thing we realized was actually that's going to drive more value to the business community that we have. And then third, perhaps many of those young children growing up in a giving family will become entrepreneurs eventually, right? So as a long-term strategy.
That's it. Yeah. That's totally it. Yeah. And it's all intertwined. I mean, that is so true based on that statistic we saw at the beginning of the presentation. 75% are running with a family member. I didn't realize. Yeah, incredible.
So, and you actually have 3 children and doing all the things you do with 6 businesses. So I feel that you are one of those people who have a busy life. and we all juggle, right? Like with so many things. So when we have so much to focus on, so much to do, what is really the secrets to be focused on the purpose? And also not only you focus on it, but you integrate the kind of purpose-driven way of what you do in business processes or even team culture. There are some things you recommend that we should all think about.
Well, the key for me, the things that I've achieved have happened because I'm very lucky, very, very, very lucky that I have no skills. So
What?
when I have I have no skills. So the only thing that I'm qualified, I actually have one qualification, which is that I have a driver's license. So I have the skill of being able to drive a car, and I have a driver's license. But I dropped out of university. I never graduated or qualified for anything. I have no qualifications to operate anything or do anything. I can't edit videos. I can't build websites. I can't code. Um, so this has become a superpower for me because I have to find people in the world who can do these things and get them excited about what we're going to do together. So finding the right partner is really everything in success. I believe that all of success is a team sport, that you have to find the right people and the right partners. And actually, it's a weakness to try and do everything on your own. It's a weakness to have the skills or believe that you have the skills to do everything on your own. So like, for example, with B1G1, it's not possible for me to do 2 million giving impacts unless I've got the right delivery partner. So, you have provided me with a system and a partnership model that makes it extremely easy to track, measure, and implement. I don't have to have the skills to go out into the world and find all these amazing projects. I just need to find the correct delivery partner. So for everything I've ever achieved, it's because I've got the right partners in place. Whether it's B1G1 or whether it's the right co-founder, but it's always just having good partnerships.
Amazing. Yeah. And, Dan, we are really looking forward to what's coming ahead this year. And yeah, so the family program is one of those things we will be launching very soon. And for those members who are on the call, you are lucky among the lucky ones because you get to hear about it first and also to say, I want to be there from the start. So you can let me know about that. And for those of you who are also planning for this year, we are so excited to let you know that we will be hosting a Business for Good conference in mid-year in Europe, actually, in fact, in Manchester this year. So then I'm really looking forward to having you engage in some of these or many of these exciting opportunities coming up in the Business for Good community as well.
Yeah, I can't wait. That'll be great.
Yeah. And let me just bring up something to recognize your contribution. So Paul's going to give us an update on all of the chat impact that we created together. But I have also one more thing that Paul can do to, first of all, for us to thank you for your time to be online, live, and shared all the lovely comments and also questions with Dan. But also to recognize Dan's time and generous sharing on this call. So what you can do is this. Our team will put a link in the chat. And when you click on that, you get to choose the impact you want to create for you being here. And we will be actually, Paul and I will be funding the impact. So you don't need to actually pay money for those impacts. But as a part of it, whether you are a B1G1 member or, just curiously attending this session, you can also let us know what other things you are excited about and interested in, so we can share more about those initiatives that we talked about today as well.
Awesome. So great.
Yeah, so then what I want to do is to invite Paul back because, actually there is an interesting circle. And I see you as almost like my go-to person and mentor. But Paul, you see Paul as a mentor, right? Like, so I think it's nice that the Paul would come in to do a little wrap up.
It's lovely.
Oh, Paul,
Paul.
you are muted.
The immutable Paul Dunn is on mute.
The immutable Paul Dunn just got muted. Dan and Masami, that was just a magical conversation. You were so focused on the conversation, you didn't see all of the stuff coming into the chat. Let me tell you the impacts of that. So we had 52 Bs. What were the Bs? That was bikes. Yeah, 52 bikes.
Bicycles.
83 times 6 is nearly 500 people getting access to water. And actually 97, that was 90. That's I'm getting it wrong. Let's see. There were 600 waters, there were 500 bikes, and there were 52 Fs. Yeah. So whatever the F was, I'm so lost.
Forest protection.
And so multiply that by 5, and you get the square meterage of forest that, Dan, just because you were here, was made possible. So thank you for helping us make that. And of course, those of you who've completed that little form that Masami put up just a while ago, then that gives you the opportunity to talk about the family program and so on. I might get on a call, Dan, and go, wow, like you were talking about when with your dad. So guys, it's been really, really cool. Let me just share my screen though, just to make sure that you have got everything that we need. So there was that one there, and make sure that you're going. Can you see my screen, Masami? I can't tell you whether you can. I don't think you can. It's not there. Actually. No, it's not there, but it will be. Just a second. So do make sure.
Paul was so busy counting the chat.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I have to count all those things. Then you know how it is, right?
We have a tool to count.
There we go. So make sure you've got that little form in right there, and just let us know. Keep the chat going. Let us know how this has been for you. And Dan, on behalf of all of the people, including those who couldn't actually make it tonight because it's now 1 o'clock in the morning in Australia. So it's literally hundreds of them. Dan, thank you so much for being you. It's just to just get that moment with you and Masami, or these moments, has been absolutely
always
brilliant.
Always a pleasure.
And thank you, Masami. Well done.
Yeah, and please also, Dan, thank your entire team for doing what they do, because automatically that's leading to many more impacts in the world. And we love, all of the work that you do to really drive entrepreneurship as the force for good.
That's so great. Absolutely. And look, we've got some new employees who have joined the company in the last 3 months. Lots of new employees who have joined the companies. And we haven't yet told them about all this B1G1 impact. So I can't wait to tell the team that they're starting with a company that's made 2 million impacts. And then, their job is to get it to 5 million impacts.
You got it.
Amazing. So so thank you everybody for also being online and, sharing so much positive energy and enthusiasm on this call.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.